call a joint meeting of the Policy Board and the Operations Board to order. Call the roll for the Policy Board members, please.
Thank you, Chair. Policy Board Director Brown. Here. Kaufman Gomez. Is absent. Termini.
Here.
Parker. Is absent. Hoffa. Absent. Delgado. Absent. Orozco.
Here.
Munzer.
Here.
Freeman.
Here.
Vice Chair McShane. Is absent. Chair McPherson.
Here.
And let the record reflect that the full Operations Board is in attendance as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will call the meeting, a joint meeting to order at this point. Excuse me just a minute here. Did you want to, does he want to call the consent calendar? Can we do this together then, right? I mean,
So we're just doing the joint meeting, which is this agenda.
Okay.
Just public comment first.
okay. Okay, with this joint meeting, we welcome public comment on items not listed on the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to address us on an issue that is not on the agenda today?
Good morning. My name's Kevin Smith with Energy Systems International in Monterey. I think you're doing a fabulous job. I mean, it's amazing how fast you've implemented this agency. The one thing I would like to emphasize today is the development of local resources. You know, the whole idea behind this agency was to also stimulate economic growth in the community. A lot's been done on contracting for power from out of state and the Central Valley, but I think it's time to maybe spend a little bit more time focusing on development of local resources. San Benito County has a lot of solar energy, and the Salinas Valley has a lot of wind energy, which is problematic, but still can be solved. So I just wanted to give you my comments and observations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who would like to make comment on an item that's not on today's agenda? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. My name is Carol Coates. I'm a resident of Carmel in the unincorporated areas. I just had a question on power walls. I did go to your website. It referred me to an operations packet. Sorry. It referred me to an operations packet from December 17. I did read that lengthy packet, and I couldn't find anything about power walls on there. So who can I talk to about this?
Well, I think probably to talk to the staff about it. I mean, we probably won't get into deep discussion about it now, but Tom, what would you recommend? We could talk to the Operations Board, but it's probably best to talk to staff, wouldn't it?
Certainly, as soon as I find out what power walls is about, I don't know what the term is, quite frankly. So.
Tesla wall?
The Tesla wall?
Oh, the Tesla wall.
Home battery.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, that I
Right.
understand. And
So I can have power when the tree falls on our power transmission line.
I understand now, and I think it would be helpful if you can just call our hotline, and somebody probably can have that number handy.
I actually have the number, and I've called it, and I spent a considerable time in different menus hearing different pre-recorded messages. So if there is a more efficient way to get to talk to somebody.
Would you be kind enough just to give your name and your phone number to Beth Twincott? She's back here.
Okay,
And she'll be happy to call you and talk to you about it.
great. Thank you so much.
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you. Now that we all know what power walls are, that's good. Is there anybody else that would like to address us on an issue that is not on today's agenda? Oh, I think she's, okay. Okay, then we'll move on to the major item of today, to receive report and recommendation regarding potential amendment to exercise joint powers agreements to include the cities of San Luis Obispo and Morro Bay into Monterey Bay Community Power. And as chair of the policy board and a grad of Cal Poly SLO, I want to say this is really exciting and welcome you from the old home front that I enjoyed for many years. So we will, if we could receive the report, and Mr. Habashi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to acknowledge two people here.
Just let me let the record show, as I think it will, Mr. Huffaker and Trina Coffin-Gomez are here on the policy board, from the policy board.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to acknowledge two people that we have here. Our guest today, Scott Collins. He's the city manager from Morro Bay, as well as Bob Hill. He's the deputy city manager from San Luis Obispo. They may be addressing you later today, but if you have any questions directed to them, please go ahead and ask. Also, I want to let you know that both cities have considered resolutions yesterday to join Monterey Bay Community Power, and both resolutions passed with a 5-0 vote in both cities. Now, in terms of background, Community Choice Energy is not new to San Luis Obispo County. They started their effort back in 2013, working with the county of Ventura as well as the county of Santa Barbara. All three counties have been looking into it. Because the service to these three counties is really split between Pacific Gas and Electric and Southern California Edison, and because of other difficulties that they have found out after they started their technical study, they have decided after a number of years of looking into it to not continue with all three of them. Since that decision was made, and I believe it was made either late 2016 or early 2017, the county of Ventura decided to join up with the county of LA in the joint venture now, which is called, I believe, Clean Power Alliance, and that is started already in 2018 and will expand in 2019 to cover the unincorporated areas of the county of LA as well as the county of Ventura and about 35 plus cities in that area. Since then, the San Luis Obispo County as well as Santa Barbara County started to look into continuing their effort to see if they can come up or join or form a CCA. The county of San Luis Obispo decided not to pursue that, a CCA at the time when they were discussing it, but that left the city of San Luis Obispo working with Morro Bay. They've decided to continue on, and early on in 2017, they've looked at their options, and they've decided to form a CCA. One of the options that they looked at is to join with us, but they opted early on in 2017 to go ahead and try to form their own CCA. Basically, the principle of local control overcame the benefit of joining up with us, which really is more of a practice. We've done this already, and it was probably easier and faster for them to jump in and work with us. After the PCIA was concluded and the decision that came from the CPUC seemed quite unfavorable for CCAs, both cities decided that the gap now between the principle and the practice have widened quite a bit, and that it would be better for them to go ahead and join with us for a number of reasons that I will discuss in a minute. So basically the value proposition for them was, we are an established JPA, an established CCA. We've already been in business for a number of months and doing fairly well from a financial standpoint, as well as what we stand for is pretty much the same thing that they stand for, which is decarbonization, local control, and lower rates for our customers. Certainly, by joining us, they will avoid having to spend a lot of upfront time, a lot of upfront costs, which we already incurred, and they come with us, and we are already a viable CCA, and they don't have to start from behind, so to speak, with all the difficulty that is being generated now by the PCIA, or the power charge and difference adjustment. For us, having them join us definitely gives us a lot of political influence. The more areas geographically that we bring into our fold, the better we are when we next year begin to talk to folks in Sacramento about pushing probably our own bill in order to help push against some of the effort that's been worked against us for the past number of months. Also, right off Morro Bay, there's a project that's being contemplated, offshore wind, that will be anywhere between 700 to 2,000 megawatt worth of offshore wind. And I think this is the next renewable resource of the future. The prices of it is coming down quite a bit, and you can actually place those windmills somewhere around 30 miles out, so you can't even see them, so it doesn't become an issue. And Morro Bay is incredibly supportive of that project, and we are actually looking into it and looking into perhaps signing an MOU or an option agreement with the developer. Having Morro Bay be part of MBCP is going to be a great thing for us, I believe, in order to advance this technology and to advance this project. Once we bring in the city of San Luis Obispo and Morro Bay, it's very likely that the rest of the county, as well as the other cities that are incorporated within the county, will be looking seriously into becoming a CCA. And if we can spread that all the way down to Santa Barbara, then we pretty much got the entire coast of California covered with CCAs. And once that happens, then we begin to spread inland. I certainly am very supportive. I have been working with the folks from Santa Barbara as well as San Luis Obispo for the last couple of years, doing everything that I can in order to accelerate having them become a CCA, either individually or joining us. So now that we are at this point, I'm wholeheartedly supportive of having them be part of this organization. And I'll stop here and happy to answer any questions. And Bob as well as Scott are also here to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, we might, maybe we'll just hear from the representatives from Morro Bay and San Luis Obispo to give a brief presentation about their interests, and welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Good morning, Chair McPherson and esteemed members of the Policy Board and Operations Board, Mr. Hibashi. Thank you very much for having us up here today. We just want to express our appreciation that you are here and called a special meeting to consider the City of San Luis Obispo coming to join Monterey Bay Community Power. As Mr. Hibashi mentioned, our City Council met last night. It was a unanimous vote, 5-0. And really our interests here are to have carbon-free electricity. And one thing that's important to know is that this is a first step for us in a bigger picture. And so we have received direction from our city council to update our climate action plan with a target to be carbon neutral by 2035, which is one of the most aggressive targets in the country, if not the world. We think it's possible and feasible for a small town of our size. And there really are 5 pillars. It starts with carbon-free electricity, then you electrify everything, our vehicles, our homes, zero waste, and then finally carbon sequestration with the open space in our greenbelt and urban forests. So this is an important step for us. With your consideration today and on the 5th, we think that first pillar to decarbonization and being carbon neutral by 2035 is ostensibly taken care of. So we're very excited there. Also, as noted in the presentation in the staff report by Mr. Hibashi, we have already been having numerous conversations with other municipalities and agencies in the San Luis Obispo County, and so we certainly stand poised to assist in those introductions and helping to broaden the tent, so to speak. And so we're really excited, and thank you for your thoughtful consideration of the City of San Luis Obispo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Scott Collins, City Manager, and some of you might remember me. I was part of this, the Operations Board. I was very fortunate to be on the ground floor as we helped develop this program, and it's awesome to see how successful you've been in just 10 months, raising $40 million in reserves, which is incredible. That energy that we felt in the room is what I took to Morro Bay when I took the job about a year ago, and have been pushing CCE with my council, and it's so wonderful to have the partnership with the City of SLO. We were really excited and poised to move forward as a local CCE, and the PCIA ruling was very unfavorable, and I think something needs to be done to rectify that, and we've had success working with the legislature to deal with other issues, including decommissioning of the Diablo nuclear power plant in SLO County, and making sure that we have the right resources to address the loss of economic power with that closure. We could have the same success working with legislature to rectify that PCIA decision, and there's more clout when we work together. So we come here with open arms, hoping that you accept us into your family. I'll ditto everything that Bob said. We bring offshore wind potential, significant advancement in that technology. There's a firm called Castle Wind. You should look them up. They're addressing all the major issues that some of the East Coast issues weren't able to address, including partnerships with the fishermen organizations to make sure there's no loss of economic vitality for the fishing industry, working closely with the city of Morro Bay for a community benefits agreement so that we are able to capture some of that economic benefit locally, and then how that connects to the CCE. I think there's a lot of opportunity. So we look forward to working together in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to bring it back to the board, but just some brief comments that I have. I think that this could really be is going to be very beneficial, or would be very beneficial to us, both from a political sense and an economic sense. I think that the more we expand, the better off we are for our procurement procedures and just on down the line. And then economically, surely they're going to pay their upfront costs, but I think it's going to be of additional benefit in that regard as well. I think that we have shown that we are a great model, and we've been with the 16 cities and the 3 counties up to now. We winnowed it down to 11 board members, and I do think that we would need to have participation directly on boards from San Luis City and Morro Bay. I think there are going to be some concerns. How big are we going to get? We don't know that at this point, but we want to keep it as manageable as possible. But I do think that it would be a welcome addition to have the cities of San Luis Obispo and Monterey join us. But I will open up to the board for some comments, operations or policy.
Mr. Chairman, just one more thing I'd like to add before we open it up for questions, just to kind of give a quick timeline from between now and at the end of the year. Today, we are not asking for approval. That will happen on December 5th when we add the policy board. What we're asking for is just to see, one, to get as many questions as you have, and see if there's any comments that need to be addressed, and to, quite frankly, get a head nod that this is the right thing to do. What we're going to do from here on is to get the resolutions that the cities have approved last night, along with a resolution to accept them into the agency revision of the JPA of the agency. Will bring all that to the policy board December 5th, as well as we're going to swear in the additional officer that will be added to the board that will be elected from the 2 cities, and that person will be probably temporary until they decide on who they want to appoint. Then we're going to vote on the implementation plan, or the revised implementation plan that will eventually go to the CPUC prior to December 31st. So that's the timeline that we have.
Thank you. Also recognize that Vice Chair Steve McShane joined us just a little while ago too, so we have another member of the policy board. Any comments from policy or operation boards members? Yes, Mr. Palacios.
This is very exciting news. Thank you for your work on this, Mr. Hibachi. But I had a question. In terms of the governance, then the proposal would be that they would share one seat on both the policy and operations board.
Yes,
that
they will have one, there will be an additional seat on the policy board, an additional seat on the operations board, as well as the community advisory council. One seat as well.
Mr. Goldstein.
I'd like to follow up on Board Member Palacio's question. Am I on here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Lights on, yeah.
The light's on at least. Maybe no one's home. First off, I'm really excited about the opportunity to expand Monterey Bay Community Power. I think that the opportunity to have more influence at a statewide level, and obviously the efficiencies associated with an expanded operation for all parties involved are clear. You know, having been really integrally involved in the original formation, we put a lot of time and effort into thinking about the board composition, trying to balance representation from all the jurisdictions, at the same time also creating a functional body. I think many of you around the table sit on other JPA boards, and there certainly becomes a point of diminishing returns, in my opinion, where you end up with a board that has too many members and effectively no ownership by the board of the operation itself. And that was one of the factors that we were considering very heavily when we were looking at how to set this original board up, when we came up with the 11 board member structure. So the notion that Morro Bay and SLO want to join, I think, is terrific. I think the notion that they would share a seat is terrific. My question, I think, and I think we should put some thought into, is what happens if next month we get applications from 7 cities in San Luis Obispo County and Santa Barbara County, and they all want to join, and suddenly we're looking at potentially a 14, 15, 16-person board, which in my mind is maybe a little bit less than sort of an ideal operational size. So putting some thought into how in the future we do expand and what that structure would look like to ensure we maintain our governance efficiencies and at the same time also expand our sort of our user base and the efficiencies that we can provide to our residents. So that's my thought.
I might just follow up on that. The county of San Luis Obispo they're interested, I know. And do you know that are there any other cities involved? I want to focus, of course, on what's before us today. But what's the general thought of in San Luis Obispo County and Santa Barbara? How many cities are interested, or is San Luis Obispo, how interested is it really?
Sure. The entire county of San Luis Obispo is roughly about 250 to 275,000 population, similar in size, I would say, to the county of Santa Cruz. I would venture a guess that if all of them decide to join up, then that will probably add, if we continue with the structure that we have for how we appoint governors, it will probably add a grand total of maybe 3 to 4 on the outside I would say probably more so 3 directors. Again, that's assuming that we continue with the kind of structure that we have. Now, one of the things one of the advantages that we have here is time. We cannot roll the cities of Morro Bay and San Luis Obispo until 2020. So that's why we need to get the implementation plan to the CPUC before the end of December, because we have to wait an entire year before we actually enroll them. If we are to bring in more cities or the county of San Luis Obispo, that will not happen until at the earliest January of 2019. And if that were to happen, then we cannot bring those folks in until 2021. So we have plenty of time to actually rethink of how we want to structure our governing or how to align our governing structure in case we begin to add more folks in.
Okay, good. Mr. Kaufman Gomez.
What experience has the CPUC? Now it's on. Cool. The CPUC, what experience have they had in CCAs folding in new membership, new cities and communities, and the process that they go through or that they're going to go through with the requests that we're making here?
You mean at the CPUC?
Right.
The CPUC will do exactly in the future what they've done in the past. They will look at our implementation plan with the revisions that were incorporated in it. They will review it, then they have 90 days to tell us that, to certify it, basically. If there's anything in it that they need to question, they will question it. But again, by statute, they have 90 days to certify it. Once they certify it, then we are free to do what we need to do in order to incorporate these two cities.
And I think one of the other questions that might be in some thought is we've invested a lot of time and money so far in what we're doing, and to bring somebody else in, the exchange of what they're contributing versus what we've already invested in. I know that the Morro Bay and the wind project is sort of like, well, we're bringing this to the table to offer to come to you and to be incorporated. Is there anything else fiscally that's included with bringing in a new community?
Yeah, I just want to mention that whatever investments that were made out of money that was borrowed from a line of credit that is already paid back, and whatever initial investments that were made by the County of Santa Cruz for the time and material, that already is also paid back. I would presume the same thing would happen here. If we make any investments over the next year to bring them in, that will be paid back. And I think for the long term, and by the way, they are paying for the update of the implementation plan, and they are paying for the legal expenses that we needed to spend in order to update the JPA and what have you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Termini?
Tom, to come off of Councilmember Gomez's question, I think what I heard is how much experience does the PUC have in having CCAs add municipalities? Does that happen very often?
Yes, yeah. MCE has been adding cities for the last, I would say, 8 years. They didn't start as the 4 counties as they are today. They started with only a few cities, then they continue almost every year. They've been adding cities and counties, and now there are 4 counties with, I don't know how many cities, quite a few actually, 30 plus. So and that's been happening continuously now for about 7 years for those guys, as well as other CCAs have been adding members.
And how do they deal with their board composition with growth like that?
I think we're somewhat unique. Most of the all the other CCAs tend to have 1 member, 1 board member. So many of the boards are out there. There are 35 people, for example. LA is plus 30 plus. There's 20 plus in MCE, 28 in Peninsula. Right now, maybe 13 in Silicon Valley. That's the least, the smallest board out there. I don't think too many boards are out there that are too small. They for any JPA that's formed as a CCA, the boards tend to be fairly large. And a lot of times, just to address Director Goldstein, what they do is when they grow very large, what they do is they then form committees that will be committees of the board that will handle things that be more detailed and be mindful of the whether it's audit committee or technical committee or finance committee. They tend to kind of rely on the committees to be the voice of the board, so to speak. So there are ways to work it out. We still have that governance structure. I think it's manageable. Even with 12, even up to 15, I don't think it should be that big of a deal. Maybe if it grows beyond that, then we have to regroup and figure out a different way of doing it.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Goldstein.
As a follow-up to that, so if a city wanted to join MCE today, do they get a seat at the governance board table?
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions that we have? Discussion. Yes, Ms. Brown.
I'll just make a quick comment. It's echoing some of the things that have already been said about the, I think it's wonderful to see new jurisdictions coming in. I think that aggregation will give us more political leverage and economically, makes sense for sourcing power. So, and I also appreciate the concerns about the inefficiencies of aggregating too many into the governance structure. So I appreciate hearing that we will have time to reassess if we want to be doing anything differently with the governance structure and the number of seats in the future. But I'm looking forward to having new members on board. One more county.
And I think it just, obviously, and I think he's heard this before too, that when you get cities or a county of interest, that you will express, the concern. It's not, we're just concerned about how big we might get, but we want to get bigger. So what do you do, and how do you do it? But I think you're right. I think we really made the right decision in getting these 19 agencies down to board levels of 11 to begin. I think that's one of the best things we did, because we could get our act together and move forward as quickly as we did. And so I know that's on everybody's mind here, and I just know that you'll let others that know. But we welcome being bigger, because I think what are there, 19 CCEs covering about 8 million people in California at this point?
Yeah, roughly, yes.
Right. Okay. Mr. McShane.
Yeah, just a quick question. Is Cal Poly included in the city limits of San Luis Obispo? Okay, so is it included in this proposal?
Go Mustangs.
Right.
He's a Mustang too.
Hi, Bob Pill again from City of San Luis Obispo. I'm also a Mustang as well as a banana slug, I should mention. Cal Poly is not in the city limits of the City of San Luis Obispo, although many of the students do live in town.
Right, would they be included, or that would be a part of the county, or, I mean, is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure that they can as the Cal State University system, and I would need to be able to come back and provide you some more additional detail on the framework for that, but my understanding is that they cannot participate with us.
I think that's correct. I think is that correct, Mr. Habashi? I think that's.
It's coming from Bob, so I believe.
Yeah, right.
We can look into that further and come back next time.
Actually, this is very standard for most universities. They generate their own electricity.
Yeah.
Most of them have their own generation on site, and many of them actually don't belong. They're not within the city border that they at least carry the name.
Right. This is the case with CSU Monterey Bay. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Right. Yeah. Yes, Mr. Goldstein.
So it sounds like everyone's in support of moving forward with San Luis Obispo and Morro Bay joining. I would fully be in support of that. I think maybe one thing we could do moving forward here is maybe form sort of a small subgroup team to try to develop a protocol, so that if we did end up with 7 or 8 cities that came to us in 2019, that we would know how we were going to address it beforehand, rather than dealing with sort of that individual request and dealing with it on a case-by-case basis. That's my suggestion. It seems like something better to handle, sort of come up with an overall policy about how we would expand the board and what that would look like. But I don't want to hold this one up in this case, because I think this is a great opportunity for all of us.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a suggestion that perhaps the executive committee can take that on.
I think that'd be, we'll have the executive committee look at that, and we won't get back in December, but in the early part of 2019, we'll have some discussion about it. We'll make it an agenda item. I think we should, just to see how this is going to begin with, but then say, okay, how are we going to handle this in the future? All right.
Just to quickly follow up
sure.
on what Mr. Goldstein said, maybe this question should be directed to the 2 gentlemen from San Luis Obispo County, but speaking as the only Bronco from Cal Poly in the room.
That's okay. You're halfway there. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, how far along do you think the other cities like Paso Robles and Templeton, or whatever they are thinking about this or coming along? It's kind of a nebulous question, but
Thank you for the good question. Director Freeman, Bob Hill again. We've had several conversations that are fairly promising with cities to the north, Paso Robles, and also to the south, Grover Beach. Templeton is an unincorporated area. When we did our technical study, we did evaluate what it would look like with those 4 cities together, for example, and had their low data in order to perform that analysis. However, at this particular point in time, their city councils have not taken action to move forward. However,
Did you- how many
positive conversations with their city managers and
How many cities in San Luis Obispo County?
there are 7.
7.
So Paso Robles, Atascadero, Morro Bay, San Luis Obispo, Grover Beach, Arroyo Grande. Did I say 7? Pismo Beach. Yeah.
Mr. McShane.
Yeah, I don't think we can pat ourselves on the back hard enough or enough. The comment made about our reserves, how smoothly we've been able to ramp up the participation, and how smooth most of these meetings have gone. I don't know about the operations board, but it's really worked. And I would say as part of this discussion, and certainly when we take action, I'd recommend to the policy board chair that we author letters to the cities and the counties that are in question here. Let them know. We'd love to have them with open arms. This is just the beginning, and time is of the essence. I mean, obviously, we won't get to it by the end of the year, but the more the merrier, the better. The cost benefit is there. And things like how do we get to the meeting, or, thinking about a size of a board that's 38 people, we're never going to be that big. We're probably going to operate a lot smoother, leaner, and meaner. So, I don't know, now may not be the right time, but when the time's right, I would author a letter citing our successes to the unincorporated and the incorporated jurisdictions that could become part of our future service area.
I think we should probably take that up at the policy board meeting. Would that be, this is a discussion item today, and so I just want to have a general discussion about it. I think would be.
Yeah, we certainly can't
This
take
is
a
our
vote at
counsel,
this
Robert
point,
Shaw.
Oh, thank you. But I think what you're suggesting is direction to staff. Staff's here. I'm sure that Tom has heard that, and we can agendize it for direction at a policy board meeting to see if that's the will of the body.
Yeah, maybe go further. Staff may be in a position to take our show on the road. Show up at the city council in Grover Beach. Send Mark down to Santa Maria. And again, make that invitation in person, and be willing to do some presenting on it. Yeah.
I can assure you that the plan is going to be put in place on December 6th. I'm waiting for December 5th first, and then we'll go all out after that.
In general, with the new decisions by the PUC and so forth, the likelihood of any startups has been diminished, I believe. What's the probability of something like that happening?
Yeah, I think the CPUC have done a couple of things last year that made it really difficult for anybody to start. And actually one was scheduled to launch August 1st, and on July 31st they put the progress into a halt. There's Desert Southwest. They just basically say we're going to postpone it indefinitely until we figure out what's going on with the CPUC. The CPUC passed a resolution that basically say that there has to be at least 1 year between the time a CCA submits an implementation plan and the time they actually launch. That wasn't there before, and evident by the fact that we submitted our implementation plan in September of 2017 and launched in March, 6 months later. And we've done the same thing at Silicon Valley Clean Energy. So that was first that kind of slowed down the process, and several CCAs that were planning to move forward in 2019 had to push it to 2020. And of course, the second is the alternate decision on PCIA that made many CCAs take a pause about whether they want to start their own CCE. There's certainly an effort, and both at the legislative front as well as the regulatory front, to slow us down a bit. And the only answer to that, in my mind, the only way we're going to push back against that is to become larger, to make our footprint a little larger. And that's the time when you become more politically influential and make perhaps a change in the way those commissioners and those legislators do vote and think.
Okay, well, being a former editor, I'd like to editorialize a little here that I just
Please
don't
do
get
so.
it. I mean, here we're trying to be, the climate strategies are, we're all serious about them, and I understand the power of the IOUs and all, but if we're really trying to reduce our energy impact, so to speak, in the state, this is the best way to do it. I think we're going to reach our greenhouse gas emission goals of 2030 by next year, by 2019. Come on, people, start working with us. But anyway, that's all this editor wants to say about that right now. So, yes.
Well, I think it's a great idea to add the two cities, and Scott, thanks for drinking the Kool-Aid. We'd like to have a meeting down at Morro Bay. Renee and I would schedule it. But I just don't want us to forget, we have two cities in Monterey County that still need a little urging. It appears there might be a break in one of the cities, but let's not give up on some of those that are really close to home here. That's just
Yeah,
a message to the staff.
That's a good point. I think King City is, pointedly, is probably doing their own thing, but Delray Oaks is still questionable, I guess, is the best way to put it. Is that correct?
Yes, as I understand that even though the new mayor is considerably more friendly, the mayor that got elected in November, considerably more friendly to us, unlike the previous mayor. But I had a chat with her last week, and she said that she still have 4 other council members that she has to work with. And at this point, it's likely that they're going to continue with their work with King City. Hopefully, slowly, we'll be able to bring those two cities back into the fold.
Hans? Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I echo Ray's words, and I would ask that we add maybe the city of Monterey to attachment 1 in the board package, just to show that we are not missing in the big picture. So that must be more. So page 25, board package attachment 1, City of Monterey would appreciate if we be added to the list of parties.
Certainly, I think that can be done, and we'll add the city of Salinas as well, just as a friendly reach out.
What did we do?
You're all right. We're not gaining. We want to gain. We don't want to lose ground. Yeah, right. So, yeah. Sorry about that. Yes. Yes, Ms. Brown.
A quick question just occurred to me. Can we expect any change at the CPUC with the new administration at all? I don't know how those appointments are timed and how they're made, but
I believe there's at least Commissioner Peterman, the one that issued the alternate proposed decision, decided to call it a day, and she will be done at the end of this year, and she's not renewing her term. So, at least one new commissioner will be coming in. It's possible that there will be a couple more coming in, will be appointed by the new governor. So we are working with CalCCA as well as the energy professionals that the new governor is likely to bring with him to kind of start a friendly relationship with those folks, and hopefully that will change things up in Sacramento for us.
I just want to recognize Mr. Hoff is here from the policy board as well. Anybody else would like to make a comment?
Bruce?
Oh, excuse me. Go ahead. Mr. Munzer.
This is a question for the representative for the city of Morro Bay. As a representative from San Benito County, having fought the battle of trying to get, at one point, the largest solar project in the world, and now I think we can, our project is I don't know how many homes it's actually providing energy for, but it's not very many. Does the Monterey Bay Marine Sanctuary go all the way down to Morro Bay, and have they been brought into the process of your wind generation?
Yes, great question. We actually went out to DC last March and spoke with Sanctuary to see if there was any interest in siting the wind farm there, because we were having some issues with the Department of Defense being in flight path where we were originally considering locating the wind farm. Not we, but where BOEM ultimately would permit it. But we found a way to work with the Department of Defense to avoid having to go into the sanctuary, and also, as I mentioned, having a fisherman's agreement with one of the potential developers to ensure that there's no loss of fishing grounds or there's compensation for the loss. So we did take that into consideration. This time, sanctuary is not where we'd be locating, but that could be a potential source in the future, because they do create their own way, kind of create reefs for fish. These are floating, they're not anchored into the ground, so they provide additional habitat in some cases.
Good, thank you, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask if there's anybody from the public who would like to address us on this.
Christy Markey with Supervisor Jane Parker's office. She apologizes that she couldn't be here this morning. But I just wanted to echo a lot of the remarks that went around the table, that Jane is very supportive of adding new members. There's more power to our effort, and it's going to make it easier for us to find legislative solutions to the problems that are being created right now by the PUC. So we do see a lot of benefit to adding new members, and we think there are strategies for keeping a larger board engaged so everybody feels fully heard and fully engaged. So we don't think 15 or 16 would be too many if we end up there. Thank you.
Hi, Seth Capron from San Bernardino County, a member of the Community Advisory Council. I'm really excited about this. It just seems like it's one success after another with this organization. It's great to see us moving forward so quickly. I had a specific question about the effect of this on our reserves. We were fortunate to get launched before the PCIA decision, and we're able to, we've had this incredible buildup of reserves in a short period of time. And, we've been looking forward to creating enough reserves that we're comfortable to start spending more on programs in the community. And I wonder, I'm sure staff has thought about this, but I wonder if there's any thought that new members would have to somehow, how that would affect our reserves. It seems like we're going to need larger reserves for a larger organization. So then it would take us longer to get to that point. So is this going to delay programming? Or is there some way to finesse that to recognize that the new members are kind of starting in a different place than the rest of the organization? I know it's complicated, but maybe you've got an answer for us on that, Tom.
I think the reserves obviously that we have will get larger just because of the PCIA. The net margin is going to be smaller than what we anticipated it to be, and whatever percent that we take out of that to put in reserves is going to get obviously a little larger, because we're adding 2 new members that will provide net margin also associated with them. It's not going to change the equation that we've already shared with you. It's not going to change the structure by which we decide what the rebate will be like or what the funding for the programs will be like. And we need to look at this really from a long-term perspective. I think it's just best to bring the 2 cities in and they become just part of the agency and we move forward. We're not going to have reserves for the ones that came in a year ago that is different than the reserves we're going to have for the ones that will join along the way. The reserves are the agency's reserves, and that's really it. They'll stay pretty much there in order to support the entire operation of the agency with all the members that will be part of it, whether they are founding members or members that will join later on, unless I'm told otherwise.
Chair McPherson, Jeff Byron. I'm the chairman of your Community Advisory Council. I'm also a former California Energy Commissioner, and I was hoping I might be able to add a little bit to what Mr. Habashi said in response to Councilmember Brown's question about commissioners. It's a magical and mystical process on how commissioners are appointed. I can tell you I'm aware that Governor-elect Newsom has thought about this, has approached various people, and Mr. Habashi is well aware of this, I think, as well, and correct in stating that Commissioner Peterman is likely not going to stay on. I think it's for personal reasons, and I think she's the only one that's going off the PUC at this time. But there have been other efforts, as Mr. Habashi is also aware of, filling the other board seats at the ISO, which are important to us as well. So he has thought about this. He'll obviously be probably of a similar mind as the outgoing governor as well. But there is this existing apprehension about community choice aggregation at the state level in the governor's office. I don't know where Governor-elect Newsom comes down on that, but I'm sure Cal CCA will be all on top of that because they'll be real interested. I hope that helps.
Thank you. And thank you for being on our advisory, being the chair with your background knowledge. Is there anybody else that would like to address us on this issue? It's a discussion item only. We will not take any action. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on the board on this? We will then just proceed and get to decision time on December 5th, presumably. And I thank you all for being here. This is an exciting moment. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, motion second that we adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Thank you for your participation, for being here.